Okay, I'd like to open the regular board meeting for Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. And if everyone would like to stand and join me in the pledge, appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everyone. Get through this elongated public forum thing here. All right, we would like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This section is for comments on items not listed in the agenda. Person speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. While no action or discussion may be undertaken by the board on topics presented in this section, board members are listening carefully to these comments and appreciate your input. So with that, please don't everybody fight to get to the podium. Jeez. Okay, well, I'm disappointed, but all right. Melissa.
Okay, consent calendar. Item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of February 25th, 2025. Item number 2, approval of reimbursement claims for director's statement of meetings attended and/or travel expenses and claim summary for February 2025. Item number 3, adopt resolution approving the side letter of agreement with the Northern California District Council of Laborers Construction, Production, and Maintenance Laborers Local Union 1130.
Okay. Is there any board member that would like to pull one of the items? Got that part right.
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
Item number 3.
All right. If no one else, then I want to pull 2. So let's start with yours and we'll go to mine.
Sure. Just would like to get a little more background about the change and the reason for it. I'm sure it's very logical and makes sense, and I'm very likely. Well, I'm probably going to support it, but I just would like a little more background.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So in January of 2025, Carolyn's staff, who does payroll for us, was notified by CalPERS that, or had some questions about some language in our MOU and how we were dealing with holiday pay for folks that are required to work on a holiday. So there's some different parts of compensation that get reported to CalPERS, your normal compensation and what's called special compensation. And part of one type of special compensation is holiday pay. And there's rules around it. And what CalPERS interpretation told us this year, because it has been different in the past, is that for our employees who are required to work on the holiday, that their pay is pensionable, but not if they have an option to take that pay and put it towards CTO, which is compensatory time off. So basically they can't credit and take the time off later for that pay to be pensionable, which means reported to PERS as special compensation. So what they gave us the option to do is to update our MOU. They're allowing us to do it retroactively. And if we remove the option for the CTO credit for those employees, then the pay will be PERSable. And so we don't have to make any correction moving forward, going back or moving forward. So with that, there needed to be a change in the MOU. So I contacted Joshua Lepper, the business manager for the union. We had a nice conversation, explained it to him because these things can get complicated with CalPERS. Talked it over extensively with Carolyn all before that, talked with him, also set up a meeting with affected union members who work holidays so that they understood why the change needed to be made. And it really falls within a section of our MOU that says if the law changes or government code, anything like that, if we have to make a change to conform with sections of the government code or the law, that we have an obligation to change those because we have to follow the law. And so we met with them. We got had a good discussion with the union members, and the business members signed the MOU, or the side letter of agreement. What that is that a side letter just changes one specific piece of the MOU. It doesn't open up all matters of the MOU. And so just changes that holiday, that's Article 5.10 of the MOU, so that we can conform with government code. And moving forward, all of that compensation can be reported to PERS.
So just for my own education, what is it, the term pensionable? Could you please explain how that varies from compensation to compensated time off? Is that not pensionable?
Correct. Overtime in general does not get reported to PERS and towards the total amount that gets calculated in a person's retirement. So there are certain special compensations such as holiday pay. If again, we're implementing it in the correct way per CalPERS, that will go towards that. That means that those hours get reported to PERS, the employee pays their portion of the PERS contribution to it, and the employer pays their contribution. So that gets calculated in their total compensation at the end of their career that CalPERS uses to calculate what their ongoing pension benefit will be in their retirement.
So the current situation, if they work on a holiday or prior to the change, that would not be pensionable time?
Correct.
Okay.
With that option, even if they didn't select the option. So it was, yeah, and this is actually our consortium, our labor consortium, Liebert Cassidy Whitmore, recently put out a notice on this as well, recognizing that CalPERS has, from what they can tell, they're handling this a little bit different than they have in the past. So that's why this is just coming up with us, and this wasn't addressed sooner, is because the implementation of this and the interpretation of the government code has changed in our labor consortium's eyes.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. It was a great
Absolutely.
explanation.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No? How about from our audience? Questions? No? Okay. I will move to number 2. Guess you're up there, Coach. Okay, on 2 of 19, little giant sample pumps, water treatment plants. What is that?
You know, we have a number of facilities, I think mostly in the water side. I don't know how much of this is on the treated side, but you know, we need to sample water either continuously or from time to time.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, there's not a piped, pressurized water supply. So we have these little giant pumps. They range from size, something would fit in an aquarium to something that fits in a trash can, different types and size for different water quality. And we use these all over the place. They're a throwaway. Use them one time, not one time. They'll probably last 3 to 5 years. Maybe you might get 10 years out of them. I doubt it, but we're going to replace them. That's what this is.
Okay, okay. And we do testing on site for the most part, and then some of it goes to like EE's thing up there and
Correct.
in Twain Harbor.
Or elsewhere, yeah.
Or elsewhere, okay. On the same page, Mono Village tank, FRP J vents with freight charges. Now, I know what the J vents are for the tanks, but seems pretty expensive for those. $889. What up?
Yes, those are, as it describes there, the J vents for the Mona Village tank. But just for the other board members, we put ventilation, these J vents on top of our tanks in order to help release some of the chlorine vapor that accumulates in the headspace of the tanks, which contributes to the corrosion. In this particular case, we tried to have the contractor put these J vents in their contract, but they wouldn't supply the FRP, which is fiberglass reinforced plastic. And they were proposing a steel vent that was going to corrode in no time. So we removed that from the contractor scope and we sourced these from this company. And yes, they're expensive, but they're designed to last a lot longer than if we were using steel.
Okay, that all makes sense, but I'm going to jump out of line here and I'm going to go to 10 and 19. And once again, we have Industrial Fiberglass Specialties, FRP J vents, Mono Village tank. Now we're talking $7,426.
So those are the vents. Yeah, the other charge was for the freight. The company charge, we were charged separately for the freight, so it shows
Those
up
J
twice.
vents can't cost that.
They are quite expensive to produce fiberglass reinforced plastic. The shape in which those are manufactured, they are not off the shelf. They are a custom item. The alternative was to pay probably a couple $1,000s, maybe half, for a steel vent that we would have had to replace, and they would be so heavy that we would have to get, you know, a man lift in there and replace those. It would just made a lot more sense for the longevity of the tank to have these be an upfront cost than an O&M cost.
Wow. Jeff, you want to help me up there at my shop and we'll start making J vents?
You'll probably have to go to Texas though, because the Air Resources Board, they don't make those in California. That's part of the problem.
Well, you know, as long as you're talking about that, I know that the design of the tanks, the top, that was an in-house design. Is that correct? You folks came up with that so that we have the rafters on the outside of the tank, the J vent for moving the air through there to get rid of the chlorine vapor and all that.
Exactly.
The longevity and keep them from rotting.
Yeah, just for the other board members' benefit, I know President Ringen and Director Kearns know this, but most of these tanks fail in the headspace. And the reason is because that chlorine vaporizes or volatilizes, I should say, and then it combines with the water vapor and produces hydrochloric acid, which is, you know, obviously very corrosive. All the rafters historically have been on the inside of the tank. Those are sharp edges. They're very hard to coat. So we've had a number of tanks that have failed prematurely in the roof, and we couldn't even walk on the roof. We had rafters that had fallen down. We even had to replace an entire roof structure at the Columbia Clearwell, because you go inside the tank, you'd see light, you know, where there was corrosion, and even the beam seats on the shell. So what we decided to do, and just very briefly, is we went ahead and put forced air ventilation on these tanks. We're one of the first water agencies. We're the first I know of that made it a standard. So we take ambient air, pump it into the headspace of the tank, and then it's expelled through these J vents, which reduces the temperature, the humidity, and also purges that chlorine vapor out of the tank. And then we took, as you said, we put the rafters on the outside, on the top of the tank. So they're exposed to ambient conditions, which are much less rigorous than being inside the tank. And we apply that to all of our new tanks, bolted or welded.
Thank you for explaining that, because that was a biggie. And I'm really proud of our utility for having come up with it. Yes, please.
So you just said something there that I just realized. So with the rafters on the roof, now you don't have to coat those rafters, you only have to paint them, right?
You don't have the same coating system. It's an external, which is
Right.
much less expensive than an internal coating
Yeah.
system. And you can visibly inspect them much easier.
Yeah.
They're not going to fail in the same way that an internal roof rafter would, that's, you know, holding all this vapor that's condensing back and forth. There's a wet dry cycling inside that tank. And we're sort of mitigating that with this ventilation.
Yeah, I like that idea because it's what you said, the expensive end of it is the interior of the tank with the coating. Make sure that it's not harming the water. So, so now you got flat surface, for the coating,
Exactly.
and then you've got the hard surfaces, the sharp surfaces just for paint.
Correct.
Yeah, makes sense. Good, thanks.
And we produce a positive pressure in the headspace of the tank, so that chlorine vapor wants to volatilize. By having a positive pressure in there, you're reducing the rate in which it's leaving the liquid into the gas phase.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining that. The next one, same page, 2 of 19. Excuse me, facility LED replacement bulbs. Corn cob bulbs. Now that's interesting. What in the world are those?
Yeah, that's the exterior light bulbs that are all around the facility, and especially right here, not especially, but including right here. There's just the shape of the bulb, corn cob shaped.
Okay. These little buggers are expensive.
Yeah.
3 of 19. Environmental management. Tank asbestos and lead testing. I hope that's for numerous tanks.
Isn't that a beautiful sight?
Well,
It's less than $2,000 and we're analyzing 12 tanks.
Okay,
12 tanks to pour decrepit tanks with interior rafters, yeah,
They're
to demolish. Yep.
going bye-bye.
That's a pretty remarkable.
Okay, good.
And, just get used to it. Everything we do here is expensive. It's just, we're gonna say and repeat, man, it's expensive, but $2,000 for 12 tanks. I can remember the first few years we did this, we were paying about $5,000 and $6,000 per tank for the same analysis. So some things are going down.
Good. Okay, on 5 of 19, Cal Sierra disposal, Jenny's Drive tank demolition. I didn't know that Cal Sierra demoed tanks.
I know that's kind of the way it reads, but on there, but it's not. That's where we put the debris is at Cal Waste. And that's what they charge us to take the debris over there to Waste Management.
Okay, so this must not have been a steel tank?
No, it was a wooden structure.
Oh, okay. 6 of 19, Condor Earth Technologies, reclamation groundwater monitoring. Okay, I know what this is. I know why it is. But really why I brought this up is now that we're tertiary treated down there at the wastewater treatment facility, sewage, will this go away when Ports becomes loaded with tertiary rather than what it's got now?
Yeah.
Don't say I doubt it.
Eric might have a more qualified response than I do, but just in general, regulations don't ever go away or go down. They just seem to increase. But I don't know about this one in particular. So do you have a better response than I do?
Not really. Our consultant said that after we get our permit, our final permit for the tertiary, we have one for the plant, but we haven't yet finalized the one for the reclamation system. He was going to petition the regional board to remove the quarterly groundwater sampling. But as Don said, it's hard to get out from under these regulations. So we're going to give it a try. It may reduce in frequency from quarterly to annually, but we don't know at this time.
Right. And, although the treatment plant is producing 100% tertiary treated water, Jamestown Sanitary District is still discharging secondary treated water. So the water in Quartz is secondary treated.
That's what I meant is once we're full tertiary water in Ports, I would be hoping that we can get rid of that because if we were to get an MPDES permit, and we thought that that would save us if we had to offload into the creek, that certainly would be one heck of a lot more than having to check groundwater.
Yeah, once we get 100% tertiary treated water will open up all avenues, not all, more avenues for disposal and protect our ratepayers from any future costs. So yes.
Great, great. Okay, 10 of 19, Hydro Designs Incorporated. Backflow Prevention Program. Once again, I know what this is. Actually, kind of makes me feel pretty good. This must mean that we have people here on board that have been trained that now can do the backflow testing, or what?
You're not wrong either way. We do have certified backflow trainers, inspectors here. Couple, 2, 3,
Gets 4.
4, okay? But this is an outside agency that's doing it on our behalf,
Oh, it's doing on our
right?
behalf.
So we have, I don't know, 100, maybe a couple hundred situations out there in the public where because of their water supply and our water supply, they're required to have a backflow device that needs to be checked annually.
Right. But why don't we do that in-house rather than spend $10,000?
Labor. I mean, that would be quite an undertaking, and I don't think we could do it for $65. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's $65 a test, and we have about almost 1,100.
Oh,
So right now, we have this outside company who does it for $65 a test, and then we actually charge the customers directly on their bill. We prorate it for each bi-monthly bill, so it's a
Oh.
direct reimbursement from the customers.
Good job, good job. That is music to my ears, so that answered your question. Okay. Thank you for that. Same page, 10 and 19. Nope, we already did that. Oh, yeah, I have a very, very happy thing to say to everybody today. We only spent $81,687 last month for electricity.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Any questions from the board? No? Anybody out there in the audience? Nope. I'll bring it back to the board for action.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Melissa?
Melissa, before you read that, you're ready to read the next item? Before we read this next item, I need to make a little statement here. Last meeting, this same item came before the board, and I recused myself because I was unable to clear this piece of property and the people involved from my company doing business with them. I didn't think we had, but there was some outside factors that made it a little hard for me to get it cleared, and I didn't get it cleared in time for the meeting. So I went ahead and recused anyway because it wouldn't do TUD any good. It certainly wouldn't do the client any good, and it wouldn't do me any good if it turned out that we did do work for these people. And so I just, out of safety, I recused. Well, I was able to clear it. We have not done any work for this company, so I'm okay. So I am unrecusing. So, so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, great, and thank you. And while Antonio's making his way up here, well, do you want to read the item first?
Thank you.
Sorry, you know, there's a lot of bosses, but when we're in this room, she's the boss.
Okay, regular business, item number 4. Consider reduction in penalties for unauthorized wastewater connection to a property on Keith Court in the Willow Springs subdivision per wastewater section 5.01.4 DCCO?
Chico.
Chico.
Thank you.
Okay, so before Antonio gets going, yeah, and Jeff, thank you, or Director Kearns, thank you for stating your statement there. It was pretty much what I was one of the things I was going to say. The reason this is before the board, again, just 2 weeks later, is because in part what Director Kearns talked about, in part also because we only had 3 board members here. Today, we have a full complement of board members. Welcome, Director Reel. And because of all those factors and the fact that the customers, Chico asked if we would reconsider and put it back on the agenda. I cleared that with Director Ringen, President Ringen, and here we are. Thank you.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Antonio Ramirez with the TUD Engineering Department. I provide customer service for the engineering department. So yeah, this item is a request by the property owner for a reduction in penalties that were assessed for an unauthorized sewer connection. So any new project, whether it be a residence or commercial project, has to pay capacity charges to offset that project's impacts to our existing facilities. When this doesn't occur, it's really not a good thing, and there is a process in the wastewater ordinance, section 5.01.4, for collecting these capacity charges, but also assessing penalties, and there's various scenarios. This particular issue came to me from the real estate agent involved, and I won't get into too much detail, but then I put together with Eric and assessed a 25% penalty. We collected that penalty along with all of the service charges back to the date where the property owner acquired the property. We also collected the current capacity charge. So that has been collected. It's been set to the account. So in this case, what the property owner is requesting is a refund of the 25% penalty and a change from the current capacity charge to the capacity charge that would have been in effect at the time that they connected, or should have connected when they acquired the property. This ends up being, if the board chooses to approve this request, it would mean that we would refund approximately $6,093 for the penalty and the difference in the capacity. So there's a lot of detail in the staff report, but if you want me to I'll be happy to take any questions from you guys. If you want a little bit more history on what happened, I'd be happy to provide that as well.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
On scenario A, the 25% penalties was like 1,500 and 1,600, but you're saying that you want a refund of over 6,000.
Yeah, so I missed one item. So there is a 25% penalty applied to the capacity charge of 6,677. They're requesting a waiver of the 25% penalty, that's 1,669, but changing the 6,677 to 3,800. So if you look down below, you'll see that 6,677 is changed to 3,800, and there is no penalty on the 3,800.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Questions? Comments? Yep.
Just one, well, I got several questions, but first one's an easy one. On your letter dated December 12th, you showed two parcel numbers. I assume the 044 parcel number is maybe was added for some other reason, maybe? The first paragraph under greetings. APN 8983014, and then also 044-460-41.
Where's the second one? I see the first one.
It's in the packet. Yeah, in the letter. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at the owner's letter. There could be a typo here.
Good going, Hawkeye.
They say I was trying to clear it, so.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a cut and paste issue. I'm sorry about
So
that.
that was added inadvertently, right?
Yeah, the second one is definitely correct. Sorry
I'd
about
like
that.
to say I've never done anything like that, Antonio, so, but unfortunately I have, so. Okay, I got a couple questions here. I went back and I watched the wastewater committee meeting again and also the deliberation from the previous regular board meeting. Let's see. So Antonio, there was a couple comments you made in the wastewater committee meeting. You said it looked like a standard connection, and there was a clean out, and I think it was staff reported back that there was no evidence of a septic tank on the
Correct.
property. Was that all correct? I mean,
Yes.
that's what you said, right?
Yes.
And then I believe TUD staff and the septic company that was there to inspect the septic tank that they couldn't find. There was a comment, I believe, that somebody said always had a gravity connection. That, was it
Yeah,
something like that?
that's the gist of what both parties, the septic company and our staff, both seemed to have felt that whatever was constructed was kind of, it didn't look like there were any changes.
Mhm.
So it's when we go out there and inspect, or the field staff does, they camera up the clean out, and as they do so, they can see the pipe from the inside, and so they can see when something's done retroactively, as opposed to if it was all glued together all at one time. So there was no evidence that anything had been altered, that there was a clean out put in after the fact, or that there was a segment of pipe that didn't match. They can definitely see that. Both parties seem to think that this is how this property was connected originally.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. It's, at the very least, that particular house has been on sewer for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then also environmental health and the building department neither had any records of
Right.
basically anything, which doesn't surprise me. I went back and I did a poor man's title search on this, and it relates to what's going on here. I think it's kind of interesting, so I apologize, but follow with me. November 4th, 1964, a widow, Leslie Keller Gordon, bought this piece of property, Lot 20 in Willow Springs Ranch, from Willow Springs Ranch Limited Partnership. So she was the first deed out on that property. She was the first owner. She built the house. She had a deed of trust that appeared to be a construction loan deed of trust. It was reconveyed in 1987. And then the next thing that happened was 2009 TUD recorded a lien against the property, $277.18 for lack of payment for water and or sewer. So for some reason, she wasn't paying her bill. But there could have been a very good reason, because a year later, there was an affidavit death of trustee that was recorded where she'd passed away. So by their attorney. And they named her son as the successor trustee. So a year after that, the successor trustee deeded from himself, the son deeded to himself and his two sisters. So they owned the properties. That was Altergott, Smith, and Dugan. Okay, right after that, TUD issued a release of lien, so they cleared up the property. Looks like they were getting ready to sell it, which in fact they did. Altergott, Smith, and Dugan sold to DeChico. Now, there was some question in what I saw in those previous meetings that a title company hadn't done any work on it, but in fact there had been. There was Chicago Title and Fatco, I call them Fatco, it's abbreviation, First American Title Company. They both worked on the property. It looked like a escrow-only, title-only deal where Chicago handled the escrow, First American handled the title. So for those of you that don't know or may not know, when you open escrow on a piece of property, there's actually two things going on simultaneously. You've got the escrow, which handles all the money, pays all the bills out of the escrow, and prepares the documents for closing. In the same time, you've got the title side where they search the property, they prepare the title report, and then they issue the final title policy at closing. So my point on that is that, so why didn't the title company find anything regarding the sewer situation? Well, the first reason is because there's nothing in the public record. I went back and brought it all the way forward from 1964. There's nothing in the public record that talks about changing this thing from a septic tank to being served by wastewater, which I would be shocked if there actually was, because those things just don't get recorded like that. I mean, if TUD takes on somebody who was previously served by a septic system and you hook them into the sewer, you don't go down and record something at the recorder's office. So that's why I'm saying it's not common. But what does happen though is, like in Mr. Gichico's situation as a buyer, if you get a loan from an institutional lender, you know, like a bank, you know, Bank of America or Wells Fargo or whoever else, that bank, before they'll approve that loan, if they find out that the house is served by a septic system, septic tank and leach field, they're going to require that that tank be pumped, that that system be tested to make sure it's in good working order. If not, they're going to request that it gets fixed before they close that loan. However, in this situation with DeChico, there was no institutional lender when he bought the property. There was a seller carryback situation. So Altergott, Smith, and Dugan carried that money back. So there was no red flag that popped up to say, hey, go out and check that septic tank or find out what the situation is with the sewage disposal. So, so my point is, I know you guys had quite a discussion about the title company should have found it, and they certainly would have if there had been any document recorded, but there wasn't. So I made a long story short here, but the final story is that there was nothing to see. There was nothing to see, or there was no red flag. There was no notice. There was nothing in the record to alert anyone that there could be some possible confusion with this, whether it's served by sewer or served by septic tank. So anyway, based on what Antonio just said, and I agree with them, I think this has been hooked up to our sewer system for a long time, way before TUD. It was, who was the predecessor? TRWD, is that who ran? And then how about before them? Was it Water District number 2? Yeah. Yeah, right. So you've had 60 years and you've had at least one transition and one conversion of data between TRWD and TUD. I don't know. I personally, myself, I think it got lost through the cracks. And I think it's a higher probability that something like that happened than anything nefarious as far as previous owner on this house hooking in there illegally. So I personally myself, I don't think we should be charging penalty. I think we should refund them based on what I found. That's my theory, and it's worth the paper it's written on. So, so anyway, that's all I got. If anybody has any questions on what I found,
Thank you very much for doing that background check. Anybody else?
Yeah, just a comment. Thank you, Jeff. You answered all my questions and concerns. And so I guess the one thing we need to consider is what, if anything, we can learn from this situation. Are there any lessons learned? That's kind of my takeaway.
You asking me?
No, just a general question, staff and any other directors, general manager.
What have we learned? Stuff happens.
That's pretty
Stuff
much it.
happens.
Pretty much it.
And I really need to balance our workload with things that are going to impact this district and things are going to be a bump in the road. But thank you very much for that long-winded but well worth probable discovery. But I did ask Antonio to do what he can. He's done something like this in the past, I believe, we're going to try and be a little bit more proactive in getting some information out to the proper people to let them know that these sorts of things have happened. This isn't the first scenario. This has happened before. I'm not going to go into other things, but just that these things can happen, and there can be some very significant consequences to the new owner, the old owner. So if they somebody needs to start doing their due diligence. You know, I bought 2 houses my entire life, and I just signed. They said sign, I signed. As fast as I could sign, I signed. I don't know if I had sewer or not. Actually, the second time I had it inspected, so I knew what I had. But anyway, so that's my takeaway.
Thank you.
If I might add something, I mean, we've received the funds due TUD going back to when DeChico bought this, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's a win, I think. I mean, we're able to recover basically 12 years worth of sewer charges, correct? So, you know, that under different circumstances, that could have turned into a big old fight, right? So I think we're miles ahead for what it could be. And but as far as charging penalties, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with that myself personally.
Hey, Director Walls.
Yeah, I'm up. So I'm learning as we go about a fairly complex process, and it's good for this to come up for me to learn. My objections the first time were that, first of all, to make it clear, thank you, Director Kearns, for filling in all the detail. And my experience in the past has been similar to what you say. And I want to make it clear that in the initial look in the wastewater committee meeting, it was clear to me, and I think to all of us, that there was nothing underhanded going on. It was a surprise. They checked that septic tank and found out it wasn't there. It was pretty much a surprise to everybody. So that's not the issue. But the part of clarification that I wanted to do is see if I understand this right, that the investigation that we did that led to us getting $9,000 back, which is a real good start. And the fact that we will now get the payment for the thing every second month, that's the lion's share, and that's really good work on the part of engineering and the part of operation. There wasn't much to go on going in there, and they basically filled in on the blanks with testing, and that was pretty impressive. And particularly, Director Jacobs had asked, are there other situations in that same location that'll have the same problem? And the answer was no. We put a lot of smoke down inside the system, and where the smoke came out, then that was one that's hooked to our pipes. Pretty clever, so I like that. But my question was, we've run into some costs in doing all that work. If we give the money back to the penalty money, the $6,000 back to the DeChico family, then have I got it right that the ratepayer now bears the cost of the investigation? That's pretty much my only question. In answer to that, I talked to Antonio some yesterday, and he explained to me several things, that there are many cases where operations and engineering deals directly with the customers for questions that they have and to resolve issues, and really a lot of public outreach that has to be done on a daily basis. And it's one of the reasons that this operation runs well. And he mentioned that many of those cases, the amount of dollars involved fall less than what would be billable. So we just absorb the costs of those. And I get that this may be one of those cases. You don't want to bill small amounts. That's just cost of doing business. And again, the customer in this case, and there's no doubt in my mind that they were honorable in everything they did. It's just a question, the original question I had, it's a cost of doing business to go through all through those investigations. And in this case, they were somewhat extensive because we've gone to 3 meetings on it. But I get why it is.
Okay. Director Kearns.
Yeah, just to comment on your comment, Jeff. I agree. If this was truly, if we established that this was an illegal connection, and we found out that somebody did go down there under the cover of darkness and hook into our sewer system, absolutely,
Yeah.
charge them every penalty that they're due.
This wasn't that.
This wasn't that, you're right. And I hate to say, it's kind of a cop-out if you say, well, it's a case-by-case basis, but it really kind of is. Because when you've got these kinds of situations, you don't know. I mean, we just don't know. Did we lose that record in the transition from TRWD? Did they lose it prior to that? Did Palm County Water District number 2 lose it back in the 60s? I mean, we just don't know. So that's why I think we almost have to send back those penalty funds.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Director, and not to elongate this any longer, but just as a reminder, Antonio talked about last time we met, that it is a case-by-case situation. A few years ago, a couple of years ago, it came to our knowledge that a customer had illegally hooked up and paid the full price, the penalty and everything. Those sorts of things don't come to the board. So it does happen, it has happened, and Antonio handled it just the way our rules and regulations say so. So it is a case-by-case basis.
Anyone else? Okay, well, as usual, I just happen to have a couple thoughts on this. Antonio, I would try to read through this thing numerous times now. On that 501.4, I believe in here it says that the penalty is double the fees, but that it can be reduced to 25% if it's, decided to come before the board and request the 25%. Which is it? Double or 25%? If it is double originally, then who made the decision to go to 25%?
The department made that decision based upon what we were finding. I think the double, we haven't done that, but I think the double was for someone that we've been telling not to connect. This is a scenario that I kind of made up in my mind where we know a project's going to happen. We tell them, don't connect. You can't connect until you pay fees. You put in the proper infrastructure, yet they go ahead and do so. I think that's where we would start off with the double penalty. The 25%, again, there's a matter of personal interpretation here that I obviously always go to Eric to support. The 25% in my mind is for situations where we feel they ought to have known, but maybe were situations where weren't obvious what happened. And then I think you have situations where we might, as a department, support a waiver of that 25% where maybe we think it's plausible that they didn't know anything. So there's a few different situations that we look at, and we felt this situation didn't justify the double penalty, partly because it probably was established by someone else situation and not by Mr. DeChico. So yeah, that's how we looked at it, Ron, and we just felt like 25% made most sense.
So at the beginning of this year, I stated and invited the board to step up to staff and for all of us to start working together as a team. And everybody went around, shook hands, agreed that that's the way we're going to do it. So I think this is a learning opportunity here. Many times I'll have suggestions and I'll share them with engineering or Dawn or something like that on something on a project, but it's a suggestion. I'm not saying you will do it like this. This is the way you guys need to do it. I suggest it. And a lot of times I'm told that why don't I go back and get behind the dais in the boardroom, and we got it covered. We thought about it years ago. Thank you very much. Goodbye. So I think we're looking at, this discussion shouldn't be, this is just the first part of what I'm thinking. This discussion should have come before the board as it's a double fee, period, because it was not, it's improper. And they are requesting that they get a 25% break. And then maybe there'd be also another suggestion during the conversation to, that maybe it be waived entirely. That wasn't staff's decision to make. That's the board's decision. So anyway, I want to get that clear so we don't have this problem in the future, because I don't tell you how to do your job. Please don't tell us how to do our job. So that's number one. Number two.
I'm going to make one point of clarification, though. It does say may require, it puts the word may require payment equal to twice the avoided service charges. So the may is for our interpretation. So that's, I wish this was much easier and didn't require my interpretation, but it does. And so that's, with the word may, that gives us the opportunity and is telling us to make a judgment call. So that's why
Well, I'm going to disagree, but that doesn't matter. That was just one point. Number two, this owner who's now selling the property, who bought it in 2013, I think it was, okay. Thank you for going through all that. But to me, that's all good information, but the bottom line still comes down to, you don't buy a house unless you know that it's got good, safe, quality water supply and safe sanitary sewer. They didn't do that. Otherwise, we would have found out. Now, they lived in that or used it. I don't know. I understand it was a rental investment thing. I don't know what it was.
They didn't live in it. It was a second home for them. That came out in the questioning. No one ever lived in it. They went and visited it once a year. That was their answer when we said, well, why weren't you worried about the fact that the septic system never overflowed in 11 years? Because they don't last 11 years without being pumped out. And they said, well, it was a second home. We only visited it once a year. It laid vacant for the whole 11
Well,
years.
we don't know that.
That's what they told us.
Well, I've heard a lot
And we,
of things.
and we don't
in my
know it, but that's
lifetime.
what they told us.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of things in my lifetime. They could have used it as a rental also. So, all I'm saying is that when they didn't do that, they allowed 30 years of past fees and everything else to just get washed away. And now we're washing away more. This has been in place since 2008 or 7, something like that, a long time. So this wastewater section that I quoted. So we're really getting hurt here. This is not like a minor, we're just gonna give away a few bucks. I can't believe that they owned that property all those years and it didn't come up that their neighbors all had bills that they have to pay to TUD, but they didn't because the original owner hired this wonderful plumber that put in a vanishing, evaporating sewer plumbing system. So yeah, you just flush the toilet, goes away. You don't know, hey, it's great, evaporates. I'm having real trouble with this. I tried to put it to bed at the last meeting and couldn't do it. I'm not going to stand in the way again. I'm just saying that I don't ever want to see something like this come before this board again, because I don't think it's right. I think the ratepayers getting screwed. That's what I think. Go ahead.
When you're ready. Are you done?
I can go on all day, but I'm done.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's quite, this is my personal feeling. I don't think it's quite as dark a picture as you just painted. You know, you made the comment that you didn't actually say it, but you alluded to that.
Carolyn, sign him up. Put him on a billing. He thinks he'll pay for it. He thinks there's no problem. The ratepayers don't want to pay for it,
No,
but
no,
he'll
no.
pay for it.
But you made it, I think what I heard you say is that that nobody's ever paid a sewer bill on this property ever. Is that what you meant?
Well,
Yeah.
until now, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's true though, Ron, because I think there's a really good chance, in fact, better than 50-50, that somebody did pay a sewer bill on this thing. And at some point in time, in those 60 years, it got dropped off or it fell off the rolls somehow. Because it appears to be a professionally installed hookup to the sewer system, correct? And then you had two conversions, I guess, Water District Number 2, TRWD, and then to TUD. I just can't imagine that they would hook up a house to the sewer and miss it there. I think it probably fell off the rolls down the road. That's just my opinion, Ron. I don't know if,
Well,
I have nothing to base it on other than.
All of us just
Yeah.
are guessing because
Right.
the records are gone or never were. So I'm just saying that you look at, we've had, this thing has come before the committee and before the board twice. Those people out there don't make a nickel 298. We sent out a crew with expensive equipment for free, to camera the line and everything else. And on all of this, now we're gonna reward them by rebating what little penalty they were given for this whole thing. And really, the fault was that they never asked when they bought the place, hey, when I flush the toilet, where does that go? Does it go out back into the sewer, into a septic? Or does it go to the sewer? That's a pretty basic, important question. Because county will red tag that property if it's not operating correctly and surfacing. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah.
I want to jump back into, all those years from 1960s to up through 90, that was, I believe Director Kearns is correct in that it might have gotten dropped off the rolls, but I also believe, and Director Ringen says, from 1960s up through 2024, nobody ever realized that there wasn't a sewer, hookup sewer there. Yeah, that seems unlikely. But where we come from is it plausible? What, that from 2013, when these people bought this, that they didn't know. And it is plausible. I've seen two cases myself where somebody says, well, my toilet backed up. And I said, well, it's backed up all the way down to your sewer when I was and they said, oh, well, we do have a septic system. We didn't know that, and that happens in real life. So crazy things happen. So I do agree with Director Ringen, though, that I believe that likely at some point, somebody said, well, nobody's charging us for this. We'll just let it go. But I don't think it was this group of people. I don't think it was the DeChicos. I think they were surprised. But I don't know. We just don't know.
Well, they were under the belief, I guess, that they had plumbing system that just vaporizes all the waste and everything. It goes away. Magical. So anyway, anybody else? No comments? How about the audience? No, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to approve the requested action and penalties to the requested reduction in penalties for unauthorized wastewater connection to a property on Key Court in the Willow Springs subdivision per wastewater section 5.01.4.
I'll second.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A very reluctant aye. All those against? Okay, 5-0. Thank you. Stops at the counter. Okay, Melissa, please.
Okay, item number 5, board president selection of board representatives for committees and organizations for 2025.
Okay, well, I guess it's me. So quite a bit of time and effort went into this between Dawn and I. And sure you've all seen, if you read your agenda item, the final outcome of the assignments. I don't think there's any reason for me to go over them. It's all right there in front of you. So one of the things that I wanted to do this time that's maybe a little different than the way it's been done in the past is that I'm tasking the members of the various committees or representatives to actually bring positive information back to the full board so that, and staff, I really want to make, like, Board Director Kearns is in the hot seat because he's got to bring back information to Carolyn so that, you know, any kind of tidbits on what sort of bad news is coming for upcoming insurance or whatever, you know, just so that the GM and our finance director can plan a little bit better and be heads up for all the projects we got going. We're really in a wonderful time as far as how much is being accomplished by staff and the crews. And and it's a very troubling time. We don't know what's going to happen day to day. So we want to stay on top of everything. And Director Hollis is going to be not only handling fun-filled and exciting things like what just occurred from the sewer committee, but now you're tasked with organizing and ramrodding what used to be all the time, every quarter, the meetings of all the various sewer utilities here in Tuolumne County. Because once again, let's all work together. Things are getting difficult. Let's try and stay ahead of it. So anyway, that's the idea behind the assignments is if you're on something, you're tasked to actually do something with it. You're not just there to take up space in a chair. So, if there's any questions or anything like that? Comments? I guess that's it. Unless, Dawn, you got something to say. You and I spent a fair amount of time on it.
We have, and we have a lot more to go over throughout this year. My phone's always on. Yeah, if you don't have my cell phone, you need my cell phone, call me. I'm available. I'm text savvy. Corey got excited. Oh, he is. But yeah. So anyway, yeah, just if there's anything you know that you're not sure of with related to anything but your committees, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Guess that's it. Anything from anybody out there? Nope. Okay, Melissa?
Next item is staff reports.
I'll be brief. Last week, I think it was, yeah, it's only Tuesday, so I went to a Natural Resources Committee meeting of which TUD is a member, so we need to show up. There's somebody from TUD. I'm the primary representative, but not a lot to report there. There was a report out by somebody, a professor from UC Davis, to discuss the topic of targeted grazing for fuels management. So it was interesting discussion, and there wasn't this meeting lasts 1 hour, not 1 second over an hour. So there's not a lot of time for other agencies to report out on. But anyway, that's all I have.
On the, what's that? Hi. Sorry, I'm late. Sorry. Well, sort of, it was a hot seat up there too. On the 25th, I went to the Fire Safe Council meeting with EN2, and we went over fire water drafts points and the wildfire grant again to try and get them to get us a letter of support. Kind of getting ready for the final stuff here. That's all I have.
Good to hear.
The only thing I have to share is related to Sierra Pines. This Friday, we should receive the proposals. We'll be reviewing those over the coming weeks, scheduling interviews, and then coming back to the board with, a staff recommendation on hiring a design build.
Not much to report other than we just finished mid-year budget and now we're starting budget for next year. So that will come to you for first discussion and review in May, and then for hopeful approval in June.
And just a couple of reminders and announcements. We have some events coming up. And the first this month is the Reclamation Luncheon on March 26th. So if you haven't RSVP'd to Emily, please do if you'd like to attend that. And then also we have the Home and Garden Show that we participate in every year, and that's on April 12th and 13th. And you've also received an email asking you if you'd like to participate in that Home and Garden Show. We break it up into a couple hour blocks throughout the day on both Saturday and Sunday. So if you have any questions about that or you would like to participate in that, please email Emily. And that's all.
Okay, I guess it's back to the board then, and I guess we'll start at this end.
I've got a question for Eric Johnson. The grant funding for the Sierra Pines project, there's been a lot of stuff going on about grants and grant funding. Could you give us an update on how that relates to our project?
Well, it's a great question that we've been asking ourselves internally for the last few weeks, given the news on the federal level. I don't have a really great answer for you at this time. Dawn has asked me to reach out to our state funding representative from the Division of Financial Assistance and inquire. He unfortunately doesn't have clear guidance from the top flowing down. All I can say at this point is we don't have any reason to believe that our project, because the funding agreement was executed before recent executive orders from the president, we don't have any clear reason to believe that it's in jeopardy right now. But that could change. At this point, if it's state funding that we're receiving, we feel a lot more confident than if it's federal funding. And we don't know the funding mixture for this particular project. We know it's some state money and some federal money, but I couldn't tell you that, oh, the federal funding component is only 10% of the overall project, which would mean then our exposure is more like 10% rather than the full funding amount. We'll continue to follow it closely and we'll bring you an update if there is any new information. But right now we continue to proceed all, all gears as fast as we can towards getting this team assembled, the design build team selected. And then also we want to make sure the board is aware we do have a funding shortfall. So we continue to work with USDA and the state on securing approximately 16 million. We'll need that probably a couple years from now, but we do want to have a clear path forward to secure the additional funding so that we can complete the entire project.
Great, thank you. And I have nothing to report.
Director Wallace.
Yeah, on the 1st of March, I went over to Murphy's for a Fire Safe Council presentation by Karen Caldwell. It was a pretty good presentation, put on by the League of Women Voters Mother Lode. We're all thinking about fire directly house by house and also in the forest. And she did a lot of information on forest management. For you guys have gotten a lot of the same information. We're making headway.
Okay, you have anything? I didn't expect you would, but just thought I'd ask. Director Kearns.
Yes. Okay. Since you appointed me to LAFCO, you asked me to go to the LAFCO meeting yesterday, so I did. And after struggling to get a quorum there, they did get started, and it was a pretty short agenda. They're currently in the middle of changing from the Tuolumne County LAFCO to an independent LAFCO. And they've contracted with the city of Sonora to use the city staff to act on their behalf, at least for the rest of this fiscal year. They've got the money transferred over from the county to the city and whatnot, or actually to this this new entity that they've formed. The other thing that they're getting ready to act on, they're trying to figure out how they're going to move forward and get their duties done. There was 4 scenarios that they put forth, scenario A, B, C, and then a 4th scenario. They didn't call it D, but it was it was basically how often they were going to meet and what kind of staff time that they were going to look to hire. The last one was a full-time staff meeting all the time, basically. Scenario 1 was quarterly. Scenario 2 was bi-monthly. Scenario 3 was something less. Anyway, it looks like they're going to go with option B, which is the bi-monthly option. And also their budget that they're looking at, they haven't passed it yet. They expect to pass that next month. Looks to be that TUD's portion is going to be about 20,000 this year. Last year it was what, 15, Carolyn, I think? Yeah. So I would expect to see a rise in that. And the way it works is TUD, Groveland, Twain Harte, Jamestown Sanitary, and all the other fire districts and cemetery districts and Tuolumne Park and Rec make up 1/3 of the LAFCO budget. So, and then that 1/3, they call that the special district third of the budget, is split, I would imagine by size, because TUD out of that 1/3 makes up 39.41% of that 1/3. We get hit the biggest. And then Groveland second at a little over 19%, Twain Harte at 10.2, and then it goes down into single digits from there. So we do pick up the lion's share. TUD picks up the lion's share of the special districts portion of the LAFCO budget. I asked the question, I knew the answer already, but I wanted to ask them anyway. Will this TUD and these other special districts, do we get any input on the setting of these fees? And they go, no, you don't. So anyway, that ended that conversation, but I would expect a rise in our fees to somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000. They didn't have the numbers completely worked out yet, so they didn't have anything concrete to give us, but that's what it looks like it's going to be. And other than that, that's all I have.
How did it, getting it out from underneath the county to me was just a godsend. How did it seem to work at that meeting for you? Because you haven't been to one for a while, right?
Right, well, it was a quick meeting, it was smooth, they had, the representative, this Mike, what's his name here, Mike. He's from the firm that they hired to get him through the, Mike Lucan, to get him through the end of this fiscal year. And it was very professionally run. It was, they were quick and on the point, and they stayed on their agenda. I mean, it was ran very professionally.
Right.
And, but like I say, it was a pretty easy agenda yesterday. So.
Anything come up about that RMS or whatever they call it?
Oh, the MSR.
MSR.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a conversation, not much. They just acknowledged that there are 2 MSRs out there that have not been finished. I believe TUD's is one of them. And at this
Now that's
point,
included in that 20,000 fee, or is this going to be over and above?
undetermined. It's undetermined because they're still not sure. Though what I heard yesterday is that there was no decision made yet whether they're going to finish those MSRs or not. I would suspect they probably will, but
Municipal Service Review.
there you go.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that last question about extra money. So the $20,000 or our fees go into a bucket and everybody, the LAFCO will pay their dues or whatever fees out of that bucket of money. So I don't expect that we'll be asked to spend any more money of our own money besides our fees on this MSR. And for $20,000, I would think we do have a voice to say, finish our Municipal Service Review, right? So our voice, we would go through, the sitting representative of special district is Groveland Community Services
That's
District. So
correct. We are not a
we can
voting.
communicate with them to have our voices heard, I'm sure.
Yeah, we are not a voting member at this time.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what the funding mechanism was a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever it was, when they came up with these MSRs. Yeah, do you guys remember it all?
My understanding is that they were going to include it in their budget for the
Okay.
year, which then would be shared by everybody, because everybody at some point can be subject to an MSR. So my understanding, they weren't going to, the specific districts were not going to be charged for those. It was going to be included in the overall budget of LAFCO, which then would be included in the percentages that they split out to everyone. That was my understanding.
So then Don's comments would be correct.
Yeah, and that confirms my understanding as well.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you very
Anything
much
else?
for
That's it.
giving us a bunch of good information on it.
Thank you.
Oh, just, excuse me, a follow-up. Jeff, did you attend the Tuolumne County chapter of the CSDA?
Yeah, they didn't have one
They
yesterday.
did not have one. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, I talked to Pete Campa about that. They do them quarterly. They'll do one next month, and I'll attend.
Perfect, thank
Yeah.
you.
I plan to.
Okay. 226, I met with the administrative staff of Tuolumne, PRCD, it's Tuolumne, well, you're just gonna have to get that, TRCD. And the T-Stan IRWM administrative staff, like I said, and we went over numerous avenues for getting grants for fire water drafting points, and also the biochar plan that I brought up to the ad hoc committee and so on. So the gals were very, very enthusiastic about both projects, and felt that, well, they had one grant that everything on the fire water draft points checked each box. So I'm thinking that's going to be coming really quick, which will be fantastic if we can get that thing moving sometime around before summer really sets in. And it won't just be for the initial part, it'll be for the whole Mary Ann. So that will be great. We'll have some protection here in the county. But they are working on the other one, the biochar thing also, and felt really comfortable with it. They were very excited about that. As a matter of fact, they felt very good about being able to find some money. So, all right, on 2/27, attended and participated in the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association Legislative Committee meeting. And we're starting all over again. Review all the new legislation and try and categorize it and what we're gonna have mountain counties support, go against, support with change, and so on. And then that will go before the Mountain Counties Board of Directors for final okay. On 3/4, had a meeting with the GM. Excuse me, it was an organizational meeting which included the what we just went over, the committee assignments and all that. 3/5, contacted and had a meeting with staff member of Senator Alvarado Gil. And it was a follow-up on my behalf to kind of prod them along for some support letters for our projects we got going on for grants, like Sierra Pines raw water pond, and the real one that I really gave them, I was hoping that they'd get on it ASAP, is the resiliency for the main canal. So, because that grant's been, hanging for a year or something like that. So if we could get a support letter on that from Senator, that would be very helpful, I would think. Hopefully they got in touch with you folks. I don't know. On 3/7, had a contact and meeting with Assemblyman Tangapaw for support also for same things. More's better, so whatever we can get going, that's what I'm trying to do. So that's it for me. Any questions, anything from anybody, staff, audience? Well, if that's the way you guys want to be about it. Adjourned.